Good afternoon, everyone. Shalom. I'm Shosh Bedrosian, spokeswoman for the National Public Diplomacy Directorate in the Prime Minister's office. Just give us a few moments as we work through some technical difficulties here. Good afternoon, everyone. Shalom. I'm Shosh Bedrosian, spokeswoman for the National Public Diplomacy Directorate here in the Prime Minister's office. I will take a few questions after this, couple points we're trying to make here, very brief. Please put your questions in the chat of the Zoom with your name and your outlet, of course. This is a momentous day. It's Thursday, October 9th. Now 2 years and 2 days since Hamas brutally invaded Israel and took our people hostage. It also marks 2 years in the Jewish calendar since they were kidnapped on what was supposed to be the joyous holiday of Simchat Torah. We have hit a critical point in this war. From day one of this war, the Prime Minister laid out 3 objectives: the return of all of our hostages, the defeat and dismantling of Hamas, and ensuring Gaza no longer poses a threat to Israel. All of the Prime Minister's objectives have now been achieved. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu last night announced approval of the first phase of the plan for all of our 48 hostages to be released by Hamas terrorists who have held our innocent people for 734 days. We have reached this moment, a historic moment orchestrated by Prime Minister Netanyahu, fought by our brave soldiers with tremendous sacrifice and bravery, but also with diplomatic success. This is a national and a moral victory for the state of Israel. The significant and difficult decisions the Prime Minister took to get to this point, including pushing forward militarily into Gaza City, targeting Hamas leaders in Doha, his powerful UN speech, and meeting with President Trump in the White House. It squeezed Hamas to this point, forcing them to come back to the table. Through every day of this war, every victory that led us to this point since the beginning, Prime Minister Netanyahu has made it abundantly clear we will not rest until all of our hostages return home and our goals are achieved. Returning our innocent hostages, the innocent human lives that have been starved, abused, and tortured in absolute filth and hell of a vile terror organization, has been a deep personal undertaking for the Prime Minister. From the very bottom of his heart, he thanks President Trump and his team for their unwavering commitment to the sacred mission to free our loved ones in Hamas captivity. Through steadfast resolve and powerful military action and the great efforts of our great friend and ally, President Trump, we have reached this incredible turning point. In a phone call earlier this morning, Prime Minister Netanyahu thanked President Trump for his global leadership efforts to make this all possible. It was a very emotional and a warm conversation as both leaders congratulated each other on this historic achievement. Now, both Prime Minister Netanyahu and President Trump agreed to continue their cooperation here. Now, here's what I can tell you right now about the significant details going forward about this approved first phase. Tonight at 5 p.m. Israel time, there will be a cabinet meeting, and at 6 p.m. Israel time, there will be a government meeting taking place. Now, within 24 hours after the cabinet meeting takes place, a ceasefire will then begin in Gaza. The IDF will then redeploy to the yellow line as shown on maps, which have been widely distributed at this point in time. And now after this 24-hour period, the 72-hour time window will then begin, where all of our hostages will be released back into Israel. Now, the final draft of phase 1 was signed this morning in Egypt by all parties to release all of the hostages. And the IDF will then redeploy to that yellow line we mentioned, which will lead to the military controlling and holding about 53% of the Gaza Strip. Now, phase 1 stands very clear. All of our hostages, the living and deceased, will be released 72 hours later, which will bring us to Monday. Israel is preparing to receive our hostages in all conditions they may be in. This comes with the help from specialists and all main hospitals in Israel. They are ready with robust procedures that are in place. Israel is anticipating the handover of our hostages to be conducted with respect and decorum from Hamas, and will have no tolerance for our hostages to be paraded around like we have seen in the past. Hostages will then be transferred into the hands of specialized IDF forces. The great relationship between Prime Minister Netanyahu and President Trump is reflected in this plan, and we could not have reached this point without the magnificent relationship between the two of them. Everything between Washington and Jerusalem was in full coordination with each other, which was a strategy envisioned by the Prime Minister. And that's the end of our briefing today. Please put some of your questions in the chat right now so I can answer them as we go. So I'm receiving a question from Reuters. Has Israel formally signed the agreement? Has Hamas also signed it? I just mentioned in the briefing that the plan has been finalized this morning in Egypt. When will the ceasefire then come into effect? It will come into effect, of course, after the 24 hours take place that we discussed, after those meetings take place later this evening. Has Israel agreed or refused to release Palestinian prisoner Marwan Barghouti? I can tell you at this point in time that he will not be part of this release. Question from an independent broadcast journalist. I'm receiving about the 250 prisoners serving life sentences. In terms of that, it's a very difficult thing that Israel has to do. Many of these terrorists who are being released are convicted terrorists who have blood on their hands for murdering innocent Israelis. So from the Washington Post, could you please clarify the timeline for the coming days? So I did. You can rewind in this briefing. We discussed the meetings that will be taking place tonight, in addition to the timeline of the 24 hours and then the 72-hour window that will then go into effect. Many of these questions are about the timeline. So, like I reiterated, please go back into the briefing and make sure you're hearing the timeline very clearly as what I stated. Meetings taking place, then the 24 hours and the 72-hour window will then go into effect. In terms of the list of prisoners being finalized, we will have some more information that will be coming out later about that during the day. Someone asked, as journalists, are we allowed to go into Gaza freely now? Journalists have always been allowed into Gaza. I think journalists actually really need to recognize how dangerous the Gaza Strip is. There are homes, there are roads that are completely booby-trapped with explosives by a terror organization that is inside of the Gaza Strip at this point in time. We've continued to get this question, and the answer is yes, journalists are absolutely allowed inside of the Gaza Strip, but you have to understand the risk that comes with it. Let me just take a few more questions. From the Independent, what will the timeline be for aid delivery into the Gaza Strip? Let's get something very clear. Aid has always been going into the Gaza Strip from the beginning of this war until now. And of course, it has increased significantly in the last few weeks. Israel is committed to bringing humanitarian aid in. The problem is Hamas. Will this aid actually reach these populations that need it the most? You should ask Hamas that question. And in terms of the IDF redeployment map, I also want to refer you back to the map that was released. President Trump also released it as well, that yellow line where Israel will be pulling out to. Thank you all so much for your time. Like I said, a lot of the questions that are being asked are about the timeline, and we just cleared that up in this briefing. Please go back and take a listen to it. It's extremely important, and it will help your reporting as well. And let's be clear about something. This is an incredible success Prime Minister Netanyahu has been working so diligently at to get to this point in time. We know that President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu have this incredible relationship that also got us here, with the Prime Minister taking significant steps militarily and diplomatically to squeeze Hamas to get to this point in time where we can finally see the release of all 48 of our hostages, where some of them can be reunited with their families. Thanks so much for joining us today.